now that we're not just talking to 500 subscribers. Maybe things will change. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if this is the path we want or if we don't want. Who knows? But I guess we'll find out. Today I reminded myself why I don't use Twitter, X. I made a couple of posts and I saw exactly, actually for the first time, the mechanism at high resolution. And what it is that you can make a post and the post, unfortunately, in hindsight, can be seen stripped of its context as meaning something else. So I got this troll who decided to respond. And I could see immediately this was going to go to shit because they responded to something I didn't say. But having said that, they could have easily interpreted what I said in a way that they meant. The issue, the real issue, is none of that. The real issue is that people decide that the meaning that they interpret is the only possible meaning. This is a problem which underpins much of the collapse that we see in Western society, which is that we don't recognize that many things we say are represented, are used, are carried forth by words used to convey meaning. And the problem is that words are, to a certain degree, ambiguous. I went to the store is slightly less ambiguous, but it's still ambiguous because when you say the store, do you mean that there is only a store, one store, within your proximity given a certain radius? Or does it mean that there's only one store to which you go? Or does it mean the others that other people will see as stores are not actually stores in your mind? All of this gets lost. But because we aren't seemingly aware of this, we seem to think that what we hear is the only possible message that could have come forth from the speaker. And so the person then replies as if that's the only possible thing you could have meant. And it's that combination of ignorance and arrogance which is not the choice, I think, of many listeners or those responding on Twitter or whatever else, X. It seems that this is unconscious and it is possibly not fair to assign malicious intent to the person making these trolling statements. So I had no intention of engaging. I just blocked the person, removed the tweet, even though it doesn't even matter. I mean, the tweet was, or the X, whatever you want to call it now, was not even beyond benign. But I saw how it was flipped. And I thought, you know what, there's no point. What is the point of saying, putting through words that are going to convey a meaning that you did not say? What does that do? Where is the win? Nowhere. If words aren't going to be thought about by us to then think, how can we understand what the other person is saying? How can we sort of enhance their message, even if we don't agree with it, to not enhance, but strengthen it so that we can critique its best version? Hello, Elizo Gaspard. And I just thought, nah, screw it. So what do? You just let things happen the way they're going to, and there's really no point doing anything except having your coffee and going to go mark some mathematics papers. The other interesting, bizarre observation is watching Sam Harris, a man I have been following for, I don't know, 15 years, I'm not sure, or listening to for 15 years. And he is now constantly in a state of shock about his belief that America is suffering some sort of reputational collapse. This sort of is analogous to, the popular person in a group. Let's say there's a group of 5 people and that popular person is starting to seem erratic to the other four people. But the other 200 people outside that group always saw them as erratic. And so this popular person in the group is saying, oh my God, these four people are seeing me as erratic. The world is collapsing. And we're sitting there going, hold on a sec, you were always erratic. What are you talking about? So he made a comment, and it's all, look, in all fairness, he was genuine, and he had a genuine belief about this. Victor Davis Hansen guy, Terra Knee. I'm going to have to look that up. That is outside of my uh, that's beyond what's the called the horizon of my understanding of my knowledge base. Victor Davis Hansen. I'm going to look that up, and then everyone can look back and laugh. Whoever understood that. But he's shocked at. He said something which is that he doesn't believe that this generation's grandchildren will recover from the embarrassment that America is suffering. And I look at that and think, hold on a second. The grandchildren of those who have seen the humiliation are adults today. Where are you? What America did to Venezuela, and I'm not talking now Venezuela, and Chile in the 80s, and what it did, we forget that its level of corruption in Iran and the forcing of the instantiation of the Shah happened to our grandparents. People don't forget. They don't think somehow, oh, America's now great again. That was never the case. G'day. Now, as I've said many times, there are amazing and beautiful things about America, and there is a reason that many people flock to America, absolutely. But to think that it was seen as some benevolent actor by those beyond, Western European countries, I just don't get that logic. That was never the case, and there have been people, sadly, uh, angry to their bones with what they have seen for generations as a bully know-it-all with guns forcing its way into people's houses around the world. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying anything apart from these are just observations which then suggest to me that there must be barriers to information that are invisible to us. So how is it that countries and millions of people can have this view that America is, this place that is the opposite of what other people thought it could be? And yet the information didn't filter across for 2 or 3 or 4 generations. And it's absolutely fascinating. And to me, that underlines or underlies or underpins or suggests, sorry, that in fact we don't have a method of transmission of information that is very accurate, and it allows for the fracturing of narratives. And I dare say the fracturing of narratives allows for, as I said before, mutual protagonists. So each person absolutely convinced to the death that they are the good one in the story. And the tragedy is that then both good ones fight each other, each one thinking the other one is evil. Ironically, this is the same engine on both sides. Now, my experience is growing up watching Middle Eastern TV and Western TV. And when I say Western, Western has many subsets, and so does Middle Eastern, by the way. But it is absolutely fascinating to watch the same event being described as if it's a completely different event. That someone might think, we went here and rescued someone, and someone else said this person came and invaded and destroyed my family, my life, my this, my religion, my culture. And you just see that this clash is of the narrative that provides people the meaning to get up and out of bed in the first place. So both people are getting out of bed on mirror image sides, each one appearing to be the wrong side of the bed for the other person. And unless we can resolve that as humanity, we will get this continued bizarre, perverse, mutually exclusive running of narratives, which become software which force people to fight each other. Do we pass that? I don't see how we can to be honest, as humans. I'm not really sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe someone will be able to figure that out. But the first thing is to recognize that when we interpret narratives, we think that they're real for the most case. I don't think we can get past that. I um I have conversation with people who are absolutely convinced. For example, someone said the other day they were absolutely convinced that people with autism shouldn't have children, and I'm hearing this, and you can just imagine immediately someone who is autistic or has an autistic child or relative is going to imagine that and then picture that story um, laid upon the story of the person they know. And they might either agree or disagree or find the comment itself intrusive. And I just think, how do you rectify this? It's just bizarre. Like I'll sit every day with people who are absolutely convinced that there is, a supernatural being, and it doesn't matter which one because you have all of these different versions, and even the same one but seen in different ways. Um, and you sit there and you'll have a conversation, but there is a limit to what you can say or hear because then things start to break down, and I'm just like, is this the limit of humanity? Maybe. Anyway, that was an interesting rant. Thanks for the two or three people who were able to put up with that for a little while. But it's a pleasure to see you. To see you is a pleasure. I'm just finishing off this lovely coffee protein snack. We tend to filter out or ignore information that doesn't go along with the tribe. Yeah, you know what? Everything I said, everybody, remove everything I just said and just take that line. We tend to filter out or ignore information that doesn't go along with the tribe. Yes, that's perfect. That's probably why we have to learn science. When I say science, I don't mean scientific knowledge. I mean the method via which we obtain knowledge, because it's counterintuitive. I was teaching something in class yesterday, and not one student was able to naturally, which is expected for all of us when we first start out in mathematics, to move these symbols in a way that was very counterintuitive, but it was the only way to solve the problem. And one of the beautiful things when I first came across that was that, oh, intuition is limited in some capacity. And if we rely on it entirely, then we miss out on information that could get us to a solution. And I don't know how true that is globally, but that example was very humbling for me when I first came across it years ago. Anyway, pleasure to see you. See you is a pleasure. Frankie, can I be mod? All right, I'll talk to you next. Ciao.